Hi everyone. It's been a mad couple of sessions for financial markets. There's no other way to describe it. Gold and silver have fallen off a cliff after that parabolic run. There's been no real spillover so far outside of commodities, but let's jump straight into the charts and take a look at what is going on. So as usual, I'm just going to start with my World Equity Index. If you follow my pointer here, you can see European stocks, they've reversed earlier losses actually, and they are higher on the day. If we just take a look at the FTSE 100 here, really nice move higher in the FTSE 100. Yes, there's been a bit of stabilization at these highs, but we have not seen the declines that we've seen elsewhere. And if we take a look at what's performing and what's not in the FTSE 100 just today, if we look at the worst performing stocks first, you've obviously got Reckitt Benckiser. That's like largely down to earnings report. You've got Endeavour, Antofagasta, Fresnillo. They are the top four worst performers today. That's totally to be expected. They are gold and silver miners. They're down about 2%, 3% there for Endeavour. Not a massive rout is what I would say. Now we have seen bigger declines over the last week. So if I just pull this up, just to spread that out. As you can see, Endeavour Mining down 10%, Fresnillo down 18%. So we have seen much bigger declines and bigger drops. That's more in line with what we've seen in commodity markets. So for now, where commodities are going, so are the miners that are listed on the FTSE 100. However, on the other side of that, we are seeing a nice pickup in other stocks. So there are other sectors that are able to fill that void caused by the sell-off in commodities and precious metals in particular. Vodafone, look at that, Centrica, that's the gas price. The gas prices remain fairly resilient. We've also got some financial companies in there and insurers, the like, and also some consumer-related companies. Kingfisher, the economic outlook for the UK is certainly a bit brighter than what some people thought it would be at the end of last year. So we are seeing some consumer-linked stocks, some financial stocks, and a few of the energy-linked names, although they've come under a bit of pressure today, they have been able to fill that void caused by the miners. Remember, the top performing stocks in the UK over the past year and a bit have been those miners. So this sell-off that we've seen has really come into play. But if we just go to the scene of the crime, let's take a look at global commodity markets. Let's take a look at what's going on. It's just a sea of red, as you can imagine, bar the copper price, which is up just a touch. But if we just focus on energy and metals, which is where most of the volatility and the movement in markets is taking place right now. Gold had been down another 8% today. It has given back some of those losses. It's down 3%. Silver down 4%. It had been down 15% at one point. That comes after the near 30% drop on Friday, which is a historic drop for silver. It was a 5 standard deviation move. I know some people earlier today had expected a bit of mean reversion to kick in, so a bit of a recovery trade to kick in. That didn't happen. But I would say that people are obviously willing to pick silver and gold up at the lows. And it's worth noting that we've still got year-to-date gains in gold and silver. So gold is still up 10% year-to-date. Silver's still up 14%. They are still the top performers year-to-date on the commodity space, and they're outperforming almost every other asset class as well, stocks for sure. But they've obviously come under a real hammering. Now, if we look at parabolic rallies, so if we just take a look at this silver spot price, look at it. I mean, look at the drop. There's always drops, right? When we see these parabolic rallies, if it is silver in 2026 or if it's tulips in the Netherlands in the 1600s, what goes up in a parabolic way where there's no real driver for the silver price to have rallied from like $70 to $120 in just a matter of weeks, you tend to see this sharp decline. And it's interesting here, if we just look from a technical basis, we have found some decent support. The market has been very reluctant to push below the 50-day moving average, which comes in at $75.60, currently trading at $82. Now, we have been down there, but that really attracted some buying interest. Now, a fair value model would put the fair value for silver at about $65. So trading a bit above there is to be expected. We could end up trading with a bit of a 70 handle at some point, but it does suggest that a move below $75 is probably unlikely at this stage. I do think we're going to see a little bit of mean reversion. Mean reversion, by the way, doesn't mean going all the way back to $120. That's not what I mean at all, because I'm just going to ignore all this parabolic nonsense that happened in December and particularly in January. And I would say just going back to the small little gentle uptrend that we saw earlier in the year. Now, I'm going to talk more about what drove this sell-off in a moment, but I just want to show you gold as well. As you can see, the same thing with gold. A lot of buyers here at the 50-day moving average, which came in at 4,485, so just below that 4,500 level. I don't think we're going to see 5,000 in this recovery period for gold. I mean, it still is falling on the day, but it has just clawed back some of those losses. But I do think that we're just going to move kind of just take a pause. Now, there are a couple of things to point out. What triggered the rally? Well, we know that the rise in precious metals, part of it, was due to geopolitical fears and also fears about Fed independence. Then on Friday, it's unsurprising that this sell-off happened on Friday because it shows us what was really driving the markets. And what was really driving the markets, remember, markets are very good at absorbing geopolitical risk. What was really driving the markets was fears about Fed independence. That led to a sell-off in the dollar, and at the same time, you saw a pickup in the gold and silver price. However, we had Kevin Warsh announced as Trump's nominee to be the next Fed chair. He was in the race and in the running for it, but he certainly wasn't a front runner until Friday. Now, what's special about Kevin Warsh and why did he cause this sell-off? The reason why is because he is considered hawkish. So he was a former Fed governor. So it seems like Trump has maybe taken the more moderate stance and has chosen a Fed insider, if you like. But he was in favor of higher interest rates back then. And he was also a big critic of QE. So those who expect maybe a really dovish Fed on the back of the new governor or someone who's just going to do what Trump says, Kevin Warsh is probably not your guy. And actually, President Trump has reinforced Fed independence and maybe his respect for Fed independence by choosing someone like Kevin Warsh. Now, what did that mean? That meant that we didn't need to worry so much about Fed independence or the debasement trade. That caused the dollar to rally, but really precious metals to sell off because they were used as that hedge against Fed independence, against US geopolitical risk. Well, as those risks fade away, hence we're seeing this big sharp sell-off. So, you know, it just goes to show that run up in gold and silver, certainly in January, has, you know, Kevin Warsh has put a stop to that. But I think really interesting that they have found support there at the 50-day moving average. There still is support in that market, which we didn't know if there would be actually on Friday because it was such a big move. As I said, a 5 standard deviation move that is very unheard of. Now, we did start the day with a bit of risk aversion, but actually we're not really seeing too much. This is the world bond market. So bond yields are rising in the US, falling, in the US and the UK, but they're rising across Europe, but very mild moves so far. It doesn't suggest a big rush into safety like we had kind of expected. It really shows that actually what's going on in commodity markets, if we just go back to global commodity prices, is feeding into other parts of the commodity space, including oil. But again, oil is also reacting to reduced geopolitical risk and also kind of no signs that the OPEC are going to tighten supply anytime soon, even though they are pausing production hikes in March. That's certainly knocked the wind out of Brent crude oil. And I think there is a bit of a link. So there's a bit of a spillover into the energy markets, but not really elsewhere. Also, we've obviously seen a lot of nat gas. Nat gas is down to 16%. That's all weather related. So the rise in nat gas last week, where it was rising like 40%, has really been eroded right now because the weather has picked up. And that always happens with nat gas. It is a very, very volatile stock. Year to date now, it's New York, is down actually for the year. European is still up about 20% and it's down 12% today. But that's because we haven't had that big cold spell and there is a bit of a cold front coming at some point in February, or is meant to come at some point in February. So we could see European nat gas continue to outperform US nat gas. But overall, it is a weak day for commodities. And the sell-off that we saw in gold and silver has spilled into energy prices, but it hasn't really, as you can see, I've just gone back to the world equity markets, hasn't spilled into stocks. European stocks have reversed all their losses. European stocks just year to date, if we're going to look a little bit at what's going on in 2026 so far, as you can see, European stocks are outpacing their European counterparts, but the clear winners so far in 2026 have been the Hang Seng and the Nikkei, so Asia really leading the charge there in stocks. But I think considering all of the geopolitical risk and everything that was thrown at markets in January, I think they've done really, really well. And stocks have shown that they're very resilient. That's largely down to very strong corporate balance sheets. And also remember, central banks are still cutting rates, even though they're on pause. We've got Bank of England, an ECB meeting coming up this week. They're not expected to change rates, but rate cuts are expected to be coming, even in the Eurozone, actually, even with the ECB, because that strong euro could weigh on inflation and lead to deflation risks, which the ECB wants to be wary about. Obviously, we don't have deflation risks here in the UK, but no expectation of any rate cuts coming from the Bank of England anytime soon. And I think they'll probably reiterate that they expect this temporary period of a pickup in inflation, that inflation actually will return to target by about April time, and that will open the door to more rate cuts come late April or May. Let's just take a quick look at what futures markets are suggesting. Now, earlier today, big sell-off in US futures. US futures have absolutely eradicated a lot of that. At one point, the Dow Jones was expected to open down 400 points, nowhere near that now, just a 0.05% decline expected. A bit of a deeper decline in the NASDAQ, actually, and that comes on the back. The AI trade is in focus. We've got lots of earnings this week as well. We have Alphabet, we have Amazon, and we have Palantir. And we have AMD coming up in the next few days. So I think there's going to be a focus there. Also over the weekend, NVIDIA boss Jensen Huang, he said that he didn't expect NVIDIA to make a $100 billion investment in OpenAI, that it would be a lot less than that. That $100 billion is essentially ridiculous. So that's just taking the edge off the AI trade. I think also because there was such a mixed bag of results, with Meta doing really well, but Microsoft not doing so well, that investors are just a bit nervous right now and maybe willing to just wait until we see how earnings reports pan out. And we have got, as I mentioned, we have got those earnings reports. We've also got payrolls on Friday. That will be a very noisy report, not because of the government shutdown, but because of seasonal adjustments to the data. So there's a lot going on, and the markets are really, they've had their shock. They seem to be a little bit in recovery mode right now, not selling off as harsh as they were at the end of last week, but still a bit of nervousness around. And I think still something to watch out as we start this week. It's a fascinating week, as always. But thank you so much for joining. And please do follow us on YouTube at XTB, follow all our notes on the website and on X as well. And you can see everything that's going on in markets, and hopefully we can navigate you through. Thanks very much.